There is no person who at least once in his life hasn't tried to do the moonwalk, which will forever be associated with Michael Jackson. But was he really the creator of the legendary dance? This is not the only question that arises when you think about the king of pop. Did Michael really whiten his skin on purpose? What was his relationship with his father? And who is to blame for the death of the beloved of millions? You are on Inco Stories channel, and today we'll talk about the thorny life path of Michael Jackson, surrounded by hundreds of rumors and scandals. Get ready to get to know the legend, and we are beginning. Michael Joseph Jackson was born on August 29, 1958 in the small town of Gary, Indiana. His father, Joseph Walter Joe Jackson, was a promising boxer and moved to Gary at the age of 18. There he met his future wife, 17-year-old Catherine Esther Screws. 3 months after their wedding, the newlyweds bought a 2-bedroom house on the corner of Jackson Street and 23rd Avenue. The couple had 10 children, including twins Marlon and Brandon. The latter died immediately after birth. Michael became the 8th heir in the family. A 2-room house with a living room, a kitchen, and a small utility room was not designed for such a number of people. Michael, along with his brothers Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Randy, were sleeping on bunk beds, and the girls Rebby, Latoya, and Janet were in the living room. Catherine played the clarinet and piano well and dreamed of becoming a country western singer as a child, but fate decided otherwise, and in the family, the woman played the role of a housewife and also worked at a Sears chain store. Joe also had some musical talents. Together with his brother, he played in the blues band Falcons. However, the band did not have much success, and they eventually split up. Joe's priority was taking care of a large family. At times, he could work as many as 3 jobs at the same time, but the main position was as a welder and crane operator at the U.S. Steel plant. Music accompanied the children of the Jackson family since childhood. We were a family that sang all the time. We would take the furniture out of the living room and dance. We would have a songwriting competition while we washed the dishes, while we were cleaning. Music was our destiny. Joe had a guitar that was strictly forbidden for all family members to touch. However, one of his sons, Tito, broke this rule. Secretly from his father, he played the guitar and would have gone unnoticed if he hadn't once broken a string. The boy was punished, but at the same time, after fixing the instrument, Joe ordered Tito to demonstrate his skills. The elder Jackson was impressed by his son's guitar playing, and he got the idea to create a kind of family musical band. As for Michael, his mother was the first to notice his talent. In one of her interviews, Catherine mentioned, "The children and I can't even remember the song we're singing, but Michael wasn't even in the group at that time, and so when they started singing the chorus part of it, I heard this beautiful harmony, and I looked over in the corner, and it was Michael. Nobody ever taught him to do that. I don't know where it came from. So he was just able to do it." Among his musical idols, Michael was most influenced by James Brown. "Ever since I was a small child, no more than like 6 years old, my mother would wake me no matter what time it was, if I was sleeping, no matter what I was doing, to watch the television to see the master at work." Michael joined the Jackson brothers in 1964. His brothers Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon were already playing in the band at that time. The 6-year-old boy became a backup musician and also mastered the conga and tambourine. Even then, he understood that his life was not at all similar to the childhood of his peers. Furthermore, Catherine's mother was a Jehovah's Witness, and therefore it was not customary to celebrate pagan holidays in their family. Later, his brother Jermaine, in his memoirs, would remember how fascinated the boys looked through the window at the neighbors' houses decorated for Christmas. "We observed all this from inside a house with no tree, no lights, no nothing. Our tiny house was the only one without decoration. We felt it was the only one in Gary, Indiana, but Mother assured us that no, there were other homes and other Jehovah's Witnesses who did not celebrate Christmas. But that knowledge did nothing to clear our confusion. We could see something that made us feel good, yet we were told it wasn't good for us." But that was the least of the problems. Father Joe turned the lives of his own children into a real nightmare. For the slightest offense, he could beat them with a belt, a cord from an electric kettle, or make them carry bricks for hours from one end of the garden to the other. They were afraid every time their father returned home because they didn't know what kind of mood he would be in this time. The mother pitied them, but rarely got involved in conflicts. She tried to make up for the bullying by letting the children play a little when Joe wasn't home. Such a despotic upbringing formed a kind of family model in them where the father was cold and cruel and the mother was loving and gentle. That's why when the younger Jacksons saw someone's dad hugging and kissing their children, it caused quite a bit of surprise in them. "None of us can remember him holding us or cuddling us or telling us I love you," Jermaine Jackson recalled. Michael was bullied the most. His father teased him for having a fat nose, and if the boy made the wrong dance moves or forgot a line to a song, Joe would immediately slap him. At every rehearsal, the elder Jackson sat with a belt in his hand, ready to punish the children for the slightest mistake. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey many years later, Michael would say that he was terribly afraid of his own father. When the boy saw Joe, he could even feel nauseous from intense fear. However, Michael was quite fast, and sometimes he managed to escape and hide, but the punishment caught up with him later. Michael recalled, "I just remember hearing my mother scream, 'Joe, you're gonna kill him. You're gonna kill him. Stop it.'" Later, Joe would deny regularly beating his son, but would say that he could only spank Michael sometimes. His mother Catherine would call such an upbringing common for those times. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon will also say that there was nothing wrong with it. It was just how they were trained to discipline. And Michael seemed to get a little more than everyone else due to the fact that he was the smallest. Michael would remember his childhood as lonely and joyless. Many years would pass as one day, having already become a world-famous performer, he would say, "My childhood was taken away from me. There was no Christmas, there was no birthdays. It was not a normal childhood, nor the normal pleasures of childhood. Those were exchanged for hard work, struggle, and pain, and eventually, material and professional success. But as an awful price, I cannot recreate that part of my life, nor would I change any part of my life." Among the few things that brought him joy as a teenager was literature. His favorite books of those days were Rip Van Winkle by Washington Irving and The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. After becoming a famous singer, Michael would not lose his love for reading and would collect a large library which would include more than 10,000 books. Later, the name of the band changed from Jackson Brothers to the Jackson 5, and Michael became one of its main vocalists. In 1965, the brothers won one of the talent shows. Michael performed the Temptations song My Girl and also a dance to Robert Parker's single Barefootin'. It was a real success. Joe finally turned from a father into a manager. Children were forbidden to go out, make friends, and communicate with anyone except family members. All their time was occupied by constant and exhausting rehearsals. I remember going to the recording studio and there was a park across the street and I'd see all the children playing and I would cry because it would make me sad that I would have to work instead. Joe demanded that the children addressed him by name. Janet recalled how she once called him Dad, to which he strictly replied, "I'm Joseph to you." In 1966, the family band went on a tour of the Midwest. Besides local concerts and school discos, the Jackson 5 performed in so-called black clubs and as an opening act for Sam and Dave, the OJs, Gladys Knight, and Netta James. Despite their very young age, they also played in nightclubs and bars. I grew up on stage. I grew up in nightclubs. When I was 7, 8 years old, I was in nightclubs. I saw striptease girls take off all their clothes. I saw fights break out. I saw people throw up on each other. I saw adults act like pigs. A year later, the band won an amateur night concert held at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. And during a performance at Beckman Junior High, the founder of the Steeltown Records label drew attention to the young musicians. The Jackson 5 signed a 6-month contract with him and released their first single, Big Boy, performed by a 9-year-old Michael. That same year, the Jacksons opened for Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers. Taylor was delighted and arranged their audition at the Motown Record Company. Furthermore, Bobby produced some of the band's songs, such as Who's Lovin' You. Motown bosses weren't thrilled with the idea of working with children at first, as they thought they were more problematic than adults. But one of the company's workers, Suzanne DePass, having heard the boys sing live, made efforts to give the band the green light. This woman played a large role in the creative development of the Jackson 5, becoming the band's mentor after they joined Motown. She later helped Michael with his solo career and was the first to see him rehearse the iconic moonwalk in 1983. Michael Jackson was a human sponge, and he was soaking up as much information and knowledge and experience as he could. She recalled, "He was very much a fan of old movies, as I'm sure you know. The Fred Astaire's, Elizabeth Taylor's, Katharine Hepburn's, and those were the people that he pursued to get to know. He was definitely a curious, engaged, interested person, and I think it's no accident that he became the Michael Jackson that basically everyone knows." So the Jackson 5 signed an exclusive 7-year contract with Motown and moved to Los Angeles with the whole family. The publicist decided that Diana Ross, the vocalist of the Supremes, one of the label's most successful groups, should introduce the band to the public with a cover version of the single It's Your Thing. The Jacksons performed at the 1969 Miss Black America pageant and made their first television appearance. Special attention was drawn to young Michael. whom Rolling Stone wrote about. A prodigy with overwhelming musical gifts who quickly emerged as the main draw and lead singer. A separate team of authors and producers began writing songs for the Jacksons. I Want You Back was the first track of the band, which took the first place in the Billboard Hot 100. Their debut album, Diana Ross Presents The Jackson 5, also charted in 1969. The songs ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There occupied leading positions. Despite the recognition, in later interviews, Michael admitted that he did not like his voice on the band's first recordings. The singer complained about the high pitch of his voice, describing it as similar to the voice of Minnie Mouse. The band gained popularity very quickly. You can't imagine how overwhelming it was, Suzanne Desponts recalled. It was like Beatlemania with young kids. None of us had ever seen anything like it. It was astonishing how quickly it all happened. On the wave of success in the spring of 1971, Joe decided to move his family to a large house in Encino, California. The Jackson 5 continued to work relentlessly. They had a tight touring schedule, and with that, great popularity. It was so huge that the company, Rankin/Bass, created a cartoon of the same name about them, 2 seasons of which were broadcast every Saturday on the ABC channel.
Jackson 5.
Simultaneously with the work in the band, Michael released his debut album, Got to Be There. In a few more months, the 14-year-old teenager had a second solo album, Ben. His song of the same name became the soundtrack of an American horror film about killer rats. This track also took first place on the Billboard Hot 100. In total, the vocalist released 4 records together with Motown. Besides the previous ones, there were also Music and Me in 1973 and Forever Michael in 1975. In general, Michael became one of the first black superstars, and the Jackson 5 was called a great example of breaking racial stereotypes. Subsequently, the band became the most profitable project of the label, whose records sold 100 million copies. Dancing Machine became one of the iconic hits. It brought the Jacksons a second Grammy nomination and also popularized the robot dance, which Michael first performed in one of the episodes of the popular music TV show Soul Train. But despite the worldwide success, in 1976 the band broke off relations with the label. The Jacksons received only 2.7% of the revenue for each record sold. Furthermore, Motown refused them to produce songs independently. This was the official cause of the conflict. The company filed a counterclaim alleging violation of the terms of cooperation and denied the band the right to be called the Jackson 5. The only one left in the label was Jermaine, who also married the daughter of the founder of Motown. In the band, he was replaced by his younger brother, Randy. The band removed 5 from its name, and now simply the Jacksons began to cooperate with Epic Records. From 1976 to 1984, they released 6 albums with Michael writing most of the songs. He wrote Shake Your Body with his brother Randy, and it was one of the most successful hits that the Jacksons recorded for the label. In 1977, Michael was offered the role of a scarecrow in the musical The Wiz by Sidney Lumet. Joe was not very pleased that the boy would participate in a project financially independent of all the Jacksons, but when Michael was offered $100,000 as a fee, the father manager changed his mind. Filming took place in New York, and Michael really liked the process. The role of Dorothy was played by Diana Ross, and once she hinted face-to-face to Jackson that he was learning the dance numbers too quickly, which made the actress feel insecure. The choreography was really easy for Michael, but out of respect for Diana, he deliberately danced a little worse than he could. The Wiz flopped at the box office, earning only half the amount spent on the musical. But it did not matter because thanks to participation in the project, Michael agreed to cooperate with the famous producer Quincy Jones. He was so shy he'd sit down and sing behind the couch with his back to me while I sat there with my hands over my eyes with the lights off. Quincy recalled of the first days of working with the young artist. Michael Jackson was a different kind of entertainer, a man-child in many ways. He was beyond professional and dedicated, evoking Fred Astaire, Sammy Davis Jr., and James Brown all at once. He'd work for hours, perfecting every kick, gesture, and movement so that they came together precisely the way they were intended to. The first collaboration was the album Off the Wall, 1979. In this solo album, Michael did not want to sound like Jackson above all, but sought to show his individuality. By the way, he hated to sing off the sheet while recording, so while working on the album, Jackson would spend evenings studying the lyrics and harmonies, and the next day he would come to the studio and sing them by heart. The record was wildly successful and received positive reviews from critics and also added popularity to the family band. Anyone who tells you that they knew a record was going to be a big hit is a flat-out liar. We had no idea Off the Wall was going to be as successful as it was, but we were thrilled, Quincy Jones claimed. Michael had moved from the realm of bubblegum pop and planted his flag square in the heart of the musical pulse of the 80s. In the same year, while performing complex choreography, Michael accidentally fell on stage and broke his nose. The musician had to undergo rhinoplasty, which turned out to be not entirely successful and led to breathing problems. But rumor has it, Michael really liked the visual result because his nose, which his father was constantly teasing, became a little smaller. Jackson's next operations were performed by the famous plastic surgeon Stephen Hofflin, although the musician always denied that he changed anything except his nose. "I've had no plastic surgery on my face, just my nose. It helped me breathe better so I can hit higher notes." In 1980, the Jacksons presented their 14th album, Triumph, in which Michael performed most of the vocal parts. The album sold 2 million copies, and the brothers went on a large-scale tour. The performer's solo career was also gaining momentum. He won 3 American Music Awards as well as a Grammy for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Along with this, he had the largest royalties in the music industry. But that was not yet the peak of his creativity. On the contrary, Michael set the goal of surpassing the success of his previous album. In 1982, Michael released Thriller, which became the best-selling album of all time and worldwide. It turned out rather gloomy, but every song was killer. The album topped the US Billboard chart for 37 consecutive weeks. Another record set by Thriller was winning 8 Grammy nominations, and the single Billie Jean was recognized as the best rhythm and blues song. But not everyone knows how much work and problems were behind the album's success. Several busy months, falling behind schedule, working in 3 studios at the same time in order to meet the deadline. And here it was, the momentum. Quincy Jones recalled, "We all gathered in Studio A to listen to the test pressing with this enormous anticipation. This was it, the eagerly anticipated follow-up to Off the Wall. And it sounded terrible. After all of that great work we were doing, it wasn't there. There was total silence in the studio. We'd put too much material on the record." Michael was in tears. They had to take 2 days off, after which they redone the album for 8 days, cutting, improving, and re-recording parts of the songs. There was also a duet with Paul McCartney in the album, and although the song The Girl Is Mine was recognized by critics as the weakest in the album, it entered the top of the world charts and also received a gold certificate from the Recording Industry Association of America for selling 1 million copies. This is how Paul McCartney recalled the beginning of cooperation with Michael.
Michael originally rang me, said, "Do you want to make some hits?" And I said, "Yeah, sure I do, So he came over, we agreed to meet here.
Michael originally fancied writing some stuff with me, and I thought it was a good idea. So he came over here to England, and we just hung out for a little while and got to know each other a bit, and ended up writing 2 songs.
A video clip for the song Thriller was shot in support of the album, and it resembled an episode from a horror movie. In it, Michael turned into a werewolf and performed a zombie dance. At that time, Thriller was the most expensive music video in history, and it must be said that it completely paid off. The choreography in it is still popular, as is Jackson's Red Jacket, which was at the height of fashion in the mid-80s. Thriller became the first music video that entered in the Library of Congress in the U.S. National Film Registry as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Sales of the album skyrocketed. The unbelievable success of the album led to the fact that in 1984, Jackson won a record 8 Grammy Awards. At the time, it was the biggest number of awards ever received by one person in 1 year. At the same time, in Michael's house, you would not find a single statuette in a prominent place. "Because it makes you feel like you've accomplished, look what I've done," he explained. "I always want to feel like, no, I haven't done it yet." The same year, all 6 Jackson brothers united to release the 6th album, which became symbolic in many senses. State of Shock became one of the main singles of the Victory album. It was Michael's duet with Mick Jagger. The latter, by the way, was not very satisfied with the final sound result. He had the two of us practice scales for 2 hours, and then we recorded the vocals in 2 takes. When he sent the finished track to me later, I was kind of disappointed in the production and the mix, but I think he's a really good singer. This song was originally recorded with Freddie Mercury, but it was difficult for the two legends to work together. Queen manager Jim Beach said that Michael was unhappy that Fred was using illegal substances. In turn, according to Mercury's manager, the frontman of Queen was annoyed by Jackson's llama, which he brought with him to the studio. The world saw the collaboration of the two stars only after their death, namely in 2014. By the way, if you are interested in learning more about the creative path of Mick Jagger or other of your favorite stars, be sure to write about it in the comments. We always welcome feedback and take into account the wishes of our viewers. After the release of the Victory album, all the Jackson brothers took part in a television special dedicated to the 25th anniversary of Motown Records. During the song Billie Jean, Michael, dressed in a black shiny jacket and with a white glove decorated with rhinestones, performed his famous moonwalk. And although most consider Michael Jackson to be its author, in fact, the singer was taught to perform it by the dancer Jeffrey Daniel. I'd been practicing the moonwalk for some time, and it dawned on me in our kitchen that I would finally do the moonwalk in public on Motown 25. Now, the moonwalk was already out on the street by this time, but I enhanced it a little when I did it. It was born as a breakdance step, a popping type of thing that black kids had created dancing on the street corners in the ghetto. So I said, this is my chance to do it. It was Michael who made the dance famous and wildly popular all over the world. Since then, the moonwalk would always be associated with Jackson. This performance earned him his first Emmy nomination. Michael always knew how to dance. Since childhood, he liked to watch the performances of cult stars and try to imitate their movements from holding the microphone to dancing steps. Thanks to his unique choreography, Jackson became the only artist to be inducted into the American Dance Hall of Fame. Michael Jackson became the real king of pop music. The documentary about the video clip Thriller brought him a Grammy Award, and the music video for the song Billie Jean became the first ever video by a black artist to be broadcast on MTV. Jackson's new look, leather suit, red bow tie, and his signature white glove became iconic. This style was copied by children all over America. It got to the point where one school, Bound Brook High School in New Jersey, banned students from wearing white gloves to class. The New York Times wrote great articles about him. Star of records, radio, rock video, a one-man rescue team for the music business, a songwriter who sets the beat for a decade, a dancer with the fanciest feet on the street, a singer who cuts across all boundaries of taste and style and color too. Michael also took part in the filming of movies and commercials. In 1993, the Jackson brothers became partners in PepsiCo in a $5 million deal. In those days, it was a record amount compared to other celebrities. The first New Generation campaign sponsored the band's tours and various events. For its promotion, Michael slightly changed the lyrics of the song Billie Jean. In January 1984, the full lineup of the Jacksons was to be filmed in the commercial. In order not to overshadow others, Michael tried to minimally appear in the shot. By the way, an interesting fact, Jackson did not drink Pepsi. Participating in an advertising campaign for the brand almost cost Jackson his life due to one incident. During the filming of a simulated concert, pyrotechnics set Michael's hair on fire. With second-degree burns, Jackson was taken to the Brotman Medical Center, to which, after his treatment, the singer donated $1.3 million in compensation received from Pepsi for the incident. At this time, the musician also underwent a third rhinoplasty. In the late 80s, Michael signed a second contract with Pepsi for an even larger amount of $10 million. In general, the artist had advertising agreements with other companies such as LA Gear, Suzuki, and Sony. In December 1984, the Jacksons went on a tour of America and Canada in support of their Victory album. These were the last tours of the band with Michael. Disputes often arose in the, quote, family team. One of them was related to the so-called lottery, which was invented for the tour. Those wishing to attend the concert had to submit an application and immediately pay for tickets. No more, no less. Winners got tickets, losers got their money back. The process of returning the funds would take some time, and for the period as long as the money was in the account, the Jacksons would receive about $12 million interest from the bank. Michael was categorically against such a trick. The price of the ticket was already quite high, $30. Besides, people were made to buy 4 at once. A large number of fans of the band would not be able to afford it. Despite this, listeners lined up in long lines for tickets to the band's first performance in Kansas City. Michael ordered a halt to ticket sales and held a press conference where he declared, "A lot of people are having trouble getting tickets. The other day I got a letter from a fan in Texas named LaDonna Jones. She'd been saving her money from odd jobs to buy a ticket, but with the turned tour system, she'd have to buy 4 tickets and she couldn't afford that. So we asked our promoter to work out a new way of distributing tickets, a way that no longer requires a money order." However, newspapers had already started writing negative articles about the Jacksons' lottery, and Michael's idol, the American singer James Brown, refused the musicians' offer to perform with the band in New York because of this. It's impossible that the singer decided to give the money earned from the performance to charity in order to atone for the public. Taking into account the successful ticket sales, the amount reached $5 million. Relations between the brothers became even worse. They did not communicate with each other, traveled in separate cars, and even lived on different floors in the hotel. The interests of each of the Jacksons began to be represented by lawyers. It was the worst experience Michael had ever had with his brothers. Some were jealous, there was denial, the whole gamut of human emotions. It could not go on like this any longer. Before the end of the tour, during the performance at the last concert in Los Angeles, Michael announced that he was leaving the band. Michael continued to engage in charity work. In total, from 1985 to 1990, he transferred almost $500,000 to a fund that provided scholarships to black students. Together with Lionel Richie, the musician wrote the single "We Are the World," thanks to which it was possible to collect $63 million for humanitarian aid to poor people in Africa and America. "We Are the World" also became the best-selling single of all time and won 4 Grammys. Unfortunately, at this time, Michael began to worry more and more about his own health. Sometime after the release of his single Thriller, he began to notice light spots on his skin, and over time they became more and more visible. Of course, the paparazzi did not miss the opportunity to capitalize on the fact that Michael Jackson allegedly bleaches his skin on purpose. In fact, the performer suffered from vitiligo. It's a disease due to which areas of the skin lose their color. This disease can also be hereditary. According to various sources, Michael's relatives on the paternal line had the same diagnosis. Jackson's vitiligo was confirmed by his dermatologist, Arnold Klein. He also diagnosed the singer with lupus erythematosus, which could also cause depigmentation. Michael hid the spots with makeup and used special creams that were supposed to even out the skin tone. However, because of them, on the contrary, it only became whiter. This bothered Jackson a lot. He worried about how it might affect his creativity, but it was impossible to control the vitiligo. The tabloids claimed in their publications that Michael was ashamed of his origin and wanted to turn into a classic white European. When he released the song Black or White in 1991, those discussions intensified even more. In this single, Michael tried to show all his indignation about racism and injustice, but the public perceived the song differently. He began to be criticized for the fact that in the single he said that it didn't matter what nationality you were, and at the same time, he deliberately bleached his skin. After all the accusations, Jackson spoke publicly about his diagnosis for the first time in an interview with Oprah Winfrey. "I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help, okay? But when people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me." Michael did use lightening products, but this was completely normal practice in the treatment of vitiligo. When the disease affects a large part of the body, doctors prescribe special creams to patients that remove the remnants of the pigment. However, it was very difficult to live with such a snow-white body. Michael was not allowed to be in the sun because it could provoke skin cancer. He had to wear closed clothes all the time and hide his face under an umbrella. In general, Jackson's appearance had always been a topic of discussion and rumor. He was credited with numerous plastic surgeries, although the singer insisted that there were only 3 of them. Some sources claimed that he also suffered from anorexia nervosa. The latter may be true, given Michael's difficult childhood and psychological abuse from his father. He adhered to vegetarianism but believed that the slimmer he became, the clearer and more expressive his movements would be during dance performances. In 1986, the tabloids said that Michael had his own oxygen chamber. This was confirmed by his manager, Frank DeLeo. "I don't know if he sleeps in it. I'm not for it, but Michael thinks it's something that's probably healthy for him. He's a bit of a health fanatic." The publication also wrote that Michael resorted to hormonal injections which helped his voice to remain resonant. It's not known for sure whether it was true. However, Jackson was indeed a very extraordinary person. Besides the llama that annoyed Freddie Mercury so much, the performer had a monkey named Bubbles. He bought it from a research center in Texas where experiments were conducted on animals. The monkey lived with the singer for almost 20 years, but when the primate grew up, he had to be given to a trainer in California. All the time spent together, Michael and Bubbles were inseparable. The chimpanzee slept in the same room as the artist, adored sweets, and caused a lot of trouble for the musician's housekeepers. Bubbles accompanied the artist everywhere, from walks to a world tour, and even paid a visit to the mayor of Osaka, Yasushi Oshima.
As an official guest of the city, in the first time for the history of the city of Osaka.
Let's return to Michael's creative path. Besides advertising companies, as we said earlier, he also took part in filming. For example, he played a role in the 17-minute short film Captain I.O., directed by Francis Coppola. The musical about space travel became an accompaniment to one of the Disneyland attractions. By the way, the bosses at Disney did not like Jackson's sonorous voice. They were afraid that visitors would not take the main characters seriously, but screenwriter George Lucas forbade changing Michael's voice. In 1987, Jehovah's Witnesses announced that Michael Jackson had decided to leave their organization. It was reported from unnamed sources that they were outraged by the Thriller music video and accused the artist of encouraging the occult. Although at that time, 5 years had passed since the Thriller release. The same year, after a long break, fans finally had Jackson's new record, Bad. It received the title of the best-selling album of 1988, became #1 in the charts of 25 countries, and pleased Michael with 5 leading hits. It was with this album that Michael Jackson truly showed himself as a songwriter. He wrote 9 of the 11 tracks and co-produced the album with Quincy Jones. The lead single, Bad, was written on the basis of a true story about a boy from the ghetto who wanted a better life and died tragically due to rejection by those around him. Another song, Smooth Criminal, the plot of which resembled the genre of a thriller, was called by Rolling Stone as one of Michael's best compositions, although it only reached #7 on the Billboard. The tour in support of the album began in Japan and was sponsored by Pepsi. 14 concerts in the land of the rising sun were attended by 570,000 listeners, and Michael's 7 sold-out performances at Wembley Stadium surpassed the record of Madonna and entered the Guinness Book of World Records. In an interview dedicated to the release of the album, Michael was asked whether he was satisfied with the result and whether he felt happy. Jackson replied that he was never totally satisfied. He always wished the world could be a better place. Hopefully, that was what he did with his music, to bring happiness to people and to bring joy. He needed some peace in their lives. This was his philosophy in general. If you want to change something, start with yourself. People don't look at themselves honestly. They don't look at themselves and point the finger. It's always the other guy's fault. You should change yourself. Look at yourself. The fans did not have time to wake up from the new album, as already in 5 months, Michael presented the autobiography Moonwalk. It was Jackson's personal story, in which he spoke openly about his father's abuse. Michael tried to fight back from Joe, threw his shoes at him, but then received even bigger punishment. The singer also touched on the topics of depression, loneliness, his own family, and again denied all rumors about plastic surgery. In total, 200,000 copies of the bestseller were sold, and in October, a musical anthology film of the same name was released.
Los Angeles, I got San Francisco, heroin, I got speed.
The interlinked short films tell the story of Jackson's creative journey. The film tapes caused an incredible stir. Moonwalker became 9 times platinum in the UK, 8 in the US, and 4 in Canada. In the spring of 1988, Michael decided to buy a ranch in California. It was a place of incredible beauty, surrounded by gardens, vineyards, a small lake, and overlooking the mountains. It is not known for certain how much such a large purchase cost him, but it is rumored that he spent about $20 million on it. Jackson built not just a mansion, but an entire amusement park with a large number of modern attractions, a swimming pool, a cinema, a stage, sports fields, and its own zoo. Architect Tony Urquidez recalled that when Michael called him and told him his idea, he thought the musician was crazy, but he still agreed to the job. He wasn't the demanding type, but more of a little kid that wanted things immediately. We had crews working all hours of the day, and you could tell Michael was excited. He put pressure on me, but it was a different kind of pressure. A fun pressure. Michael gave me a mental visual of what he wanted, and I had the freedom to create. In 1995, Michael organized the World Children's Congress on the territory of the mansion, inviting children from all over the world. The event was dedicated to the 50th anniversary of the UN and was accompanied by a large number of seminars on children's problems. The ranch was called Neverland, after the fantastic island from the book about Peter Pan. Michael could be called a boy who did not want to grow up. Neverland became the personification of everything that was so lacking in Jackson as a child, so he happily participated in all the fun activities.
Ready? No! I'm crazy for doing this. Okay, no, you gotta stretch it. Back, you gotta...
Whoa. I'm not doing the Superman. Ready? Get set, go.
You cheater!
Meanwhile, Michael Jackson reached the peak of his fame. The whole world called him the King of Pop. President George Bush Sr. was delighted with the performer and considered him the artist of the decade. Back then, Michael was really recognized as the most popular artist of the 80s. Jackson's 8th solo album, called Dangerous, was released in March 1991. To understand the level of expectation of the audience, let's cite the following fact. 5 days before the release of the album, 3 armed men broke into a music warehouse in Los Angeles and stole 30,000 copies. This album was full of socially relevant themes: racism, poverty, and the problems of children around the world. The record reached the first place of the US Billboard chart. The legendary song Black or White, which we talked about earlier, was included in this collection. The clip of the single also caused a lot of controversy among the public. In the last 4 minutes of the video, Michael transforms from panther to human and starts dancing. The singer's movements seemed too intimate to many. The next year after the album release, Michael was mostly devoted to charity and social work. He founded his own foundation, Heal the World, within the framework of which children from low-income families could visit Neverland. The singer also transferred a lot of money to support children who had suffered from the war, lived in poor conditions, or had serious illnesses. People wonder why I always have children around. It's because I find the thing that I never had through them. In the same year, he published his book of poetry, Dancing the Dream. Each poem was also devoted to social issues. For example, one of them was written about an American teenager who had been accidentally infected with AIDS. Due to the lack of acceptance by others and his tragic death, Ryan White became a symbol of the fight against this disease. Michael Jackson even appealed to Bill Clinton's administration for more funding for AIDS research and support for people with this diagnosis. Then Jackson went to Africa, where people greeted him with incredible warmth and welcome home posters. He received the Order of Merit from President Omar Bongo, and in the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, he received the title of King Sani. In his interviews, he confessed his love for this place. For me, it's like the dawn of civilization. It's the first place where society existed. It's seen a lot of love. I guess there's that connection because it is the root of all rhythm. Everything. It's home. After the trip, he reflected a lot on the origin of music, calling it a reproduction of the sounds of nature. Music started with nature. Music is nature. Birds make music. Oceans make music. Wind makes music. Any natural sound is music, and that's where it all started. We're just making a replica of nature, which is the sounds we hear outside. Perhaps this understanding and perception of sounds was the secret of Jackson's music, which conquered the hearts of millions of listeners. He was invited to perform at many events, and during Super Bowl 27, Michael's halftime concert was more popular than the game itself. This performance changed history, setting the standard for halftime shows. Meanwhile, Jackson's treasury of awards only continued to grow. In 1993, he won 3 nominations at the American Music Awards and became the first artist to receive an International Achievement Award. But career success was accompanied by failures in romantic relationships. Michael's first girlfriend was actress Tatum O'Neal. It was a typical teenage love. After it, the singer met model Brooke Shields. The young musician even dreamed of marrying a girl, but she was against such a serious step. "You had me for the rest of your life. You don't need to marry me." Besides, Jackson had affairs with more famous women, such as Madonna or Whitney Houston. However, there was nothing serious. In 1993, Michael got into a high-profile scandal that would radically change not only his career but also his entire future life. The star was accused of children's sexual abuse. Screenwriter Evan Chandler stated that Michael molested his 13-year-old son Jordan. According to the man, there was something more than just kisses between him and the musician. Jordan's mother initially denied this fact, but later also supported the allegations. Moreover, Jackson's older sister LaToya gave an interview to MTV about this, saying that although she loved her brother, she confirmed his unhealthy fascination with children and considered it an immoral crime. Police searched the performer's home, seizing 2 art books containing images of small boys. However, the copies were completely legal, and Michael said that he had no idea about their content because they were not a personal purchase of the musician. 13-year-old Jordan provided police with a description of the musician's private parts. After Michael's full examination by law enforcement officers, which became a great humiliation for the artist, the jury found the boy's words untrue. No formal charges were brought against Jackson due to a lack of evidence, but the artist still paid the family $23 million in compensation to settle the conflict.
There have been many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false. As I have maintained from the very beginning, I am hoping for a speedy end to this horrifying experience to which I have been subjected.
Concerned about this situation, Michael canceled the final concerts of the tour and also resumed the use of painkillers, which he had previously taken while treating the effects of a head burn. He lost 10 pounds, and his overall health deteriorated so much that he had to check into rehab for pill abuse. Exhausted by scandals and an unsuccessful personal life, Michael dreamed of his own family. Jackson decided to marry Elvis Presley's daughter, Lisa, and proposed to the young woman just in a phone conversation. Lisa met Michael when she was only 6, and the singer was 10 years older than her. They started talking again at the end of 1992. Lisa was already 24 at that time. On May 26, 1994, Lisa became Jackson's official wife. Tabloids called this union a successful PR move, which was supposed to distract the public from the performer's sexual scandals and help the younger Presley with her singing career. Their behavior on the screen was passionate and unbridled. They were not ashamed to kiss in public, such as during the MTV Video Music Awards, which was broadcast to an audience of millions. But behind the scenes, Lisa, on the contrary, was dissatisfied with such behavior and believed that Michael simply used her so that the kiss would go down in history and be remembered for decades to come. The woman also refused to have children with Jackson because she believed that the artist was not ready for this at all.
Looking into the future, and I was thinking, I don't ever want to get into a custody battle with him. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go head-to-head with him. So I need to make sure that everything around is good. I had children. I knew bringing children into certain circumstances, you have to make sure everything's safe and secured and okay. And I wanted to make sure that he and I were really, really united because we were going to be up against so much.
This marriage lasted only 1.5 years. Later, in her interview with Oprah, Lisa said that she and Michael had been trying to restore relations for a while, but nothing worked out. The accusations also affected the musician's career. Because of this, he had to leave the Sega project. Michael was responsible for the soundtrack of the video game Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but after the scandal, the company redid his music and did not mention Jackson's authorship in the credits. This was a blow for the singer because he adored Sonic and had previous experience working with Sega during the development of the game Moonwalker. All these events also greatly influenced Michael's new record, HITSUA, Past, Present, and Future, Book 1, which he released in 1995. The album consisted of 2 discs. The first included Jackson's best singles, and the second featured his new songs. HITSUA became not only #1 in the charts, but also the artist's most personal album, the testimony of a musician whose self-pity now equals his talent. The biggest hit of the album were You Are Not Alone and Scream. The first single was written by singer Robert Kelly in Michael's support. Jackson liked the demo and decided to produce it. As a result, the composition was nominated for a Grammy and set a Guinness World Record as the first song to debut on Billboard at #1. HITSUA became the best-selling double album ever released in the US. A duet with younger sister Janet called Scream became the answer to all the hate and accusations towards Michael from numerous tabloids. The clip in which the singer appeared in a new, daring image also won a Grammy. But this record was also met with controversy. In 1996, Michael performed Earth Song at the Brit Awards. During the performance, the singer was lifted to a height with the help of a crane until suddenly another performer, Jarvis Cocker, ran onto the stage, pulling up his shirt for the camera. Of course, the police immediately arrested the provocateur, and later Jarvis said that he simply couldn't bear to watch Jackson make a saint out of himself. Michael called his act disgusting. Jackson embarked on a world tour that had grossed $165 million. He played 82 concerts. It was very hard work because only one performance of the singer lasted more than 2 hours. But this tour was remembered not only as the largest in history, but also for Michael's marriage. While performing in Sydney, he married Debbie Rowe, an assistant to the dermatologist who treated the performer's lupus and vitiligo. Different sources say that at first they were connected only by friendship. They talked a lot, and Jackson often told the doctor about how he dreamed of becoming a father. Debbie was a big fan of the singer, and she was the first to offer him a child. When Michael divorced Lisa Marie Presley, Rowe was already 6 months pregnant. Michael's first son was born on February 13, 1997. The firstborn was named Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., in honor of the singer's grandfather. A year later, the couple was expecting another one, a daughter, Paris Michael Catherine Jackson. The children were surrounded by a team of nannies and managers. Debbie did not take much part in their upbringing. According to rumors, the woman was afraid to get attached to the kids because their relationship with Michael was not built on great love. On October 8, 1999, the couple divorced, Rowe receiving nearly $10 million in compensation, and Michael received full custody of his son and daughter. Michael continued to work on his music career, although after all the scandals, it gradually declined. In 1997, he released the record Blood on the Dance Floor, History in the Mix. It was the second album produced by the musician's own label. It included 8 remixes of hits from the previous collection and 5 new songs. Jackson spoke about the creation of his singles as following. Well, the best songs that are written write themselves. You don't ask for them, they just drop into your lap. Then there are those songs that, you kind of incubate. You plant the seed, let the subconscious take its course, and within time you hope something comes, and most of the time it does. Then he began to work on the 10th solo album, Invincible. The singer worked on it for almost 4 years, and at the same time did not stop participating in charity events. For his charitable activities, he received the distinction of the Guinness Book of Records. Michael performed at the War Child concert to help raise money for the victims of the war in Kosovo and the children of Guatemala. He also organized his own charity concerts, such as Michael Jackson and Friends, the money of which went to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, the Red Cross, and UNESCO. Under Jackson's leadership, the concert What More Can I Give was organized, dedicated to the victims of the tragedy of September 11, 2001. The song of the same name was written by Michael and performed together with other world stars such as Nick Carter, Beyoncé, Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, and others. The artist's 10th and last solo album, Invincible, was released on October 30th, 2001. Michael dedicated the record to a boy named Benjamin, who was killed by a group of neo-Nazis. The singer expressed deep condolences to his family and once again emphasized the problems of racism. As usual, the album Invincible, like previous records, collected a lot of awards and debuted at number 1 in the charts. Michael, for the 22nd time, became the performer of the century. At the same time, not all critics were delighted. Invincible received mixed reviews. Only after the death of Michael Jackson, retrospective reviews would be more positive. On February 21, 2002, a surrogate mother gave birth to Jackson's third son, Prince Michael Jackson II. The performer gave the boy the nickname Blanket. The baby became a television star due to the carelessness of his father. Once, in order to show the boy to journalists, Michael took him in his hands and put him over the fence of the balcony at the height of the 4th floor. Later, Jackson would repeatedly apologize for this act. We were waiting for thousands of fans below, and they were chanting they wanted to see my child, so I was kind enough to let them see. I was doing something out of innocence. Another scandal surrounding Michael broke out with Sony Music Entertainment. Jackson wanted to break the contract with the label in order to get licenses for the master recordings of his albums. That way, he could do whatever he wanted with the material. A real battle broke out between the performer and the studio. In July, Sony Music Entertainment abruptly suspended the promotion of the album Invincible, and Michael called Sony CEO Tommy Mottola a racist and very, very, very devilish, and someone who exploited black artists for his own gain. Jackson argued that Mottola called DJ Irv Gotti fat, including the N-word. Sony came to the CEO's defense and in response called such statements of Michael absurd and offensive. As a result, the artist and the labels stopped working together. In one of the interviews, Michael would once again say, "The recording companies really do conspire against the artists. They steal, they cheat, they do everything they can." All these constant scandals were destroying Michael's career, and the consequences became irreversible. In 2002, British reporter Martin Bashir persuaded Jackson to star in a documentary film about the artist's life. Over the course of several months, they recorded numerous interviews about the artist's childhood, his work, love relationships, and the birth of children, and also visited Neverland. At the mansion, they met 13-year-old Gavin Arvizo. A guy and a musician were holding hands. Gavin thanked Michael for helping him cure his cancer. During this conversation, Jackson said that he often allowed children to sleep in his bed, but there was no intimate implication in this. Why can't you share your bed? That's the most loving thing to do, to share your bed with someone. The film release resulted in a loud scandal. Michael believed that Bashir took advantage of him and deliberately distorted his image. However, the tabloids quickly picked up on this topic and a criminal case was opened against the singer. Jackson was accused of corruption and violence against children and that he made minors drink alcohol. Was it possible to believe it? Of course. Michael denied all the accusations and called them false. It was one of the loudest trials. More than 100 people testified in the case, including Macaulay Culkin. The young actor was also a frequent guest in Neverland, but never experienced any clinging or strange treatment from the musician. Instead, Gavin Arvizo, together with his brother, claimed otherwise. The boys claimed that Michael treated them to adult drinks, showed them forbidden films, and encouraged them to engage in indecent acts. However, there were many disagreements in the testimony and Gavin was confused. That saved Michael from 20 years in prison.
The defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80.
Although Jackson was found innocent, the trial dealt a devastating blow to his reputation, financial situation, and health. The Prince of Bahrain, Abdullah, became his new friend. He helped Michael close all financial issues, offered to move to Bahrain, and cooperate with the Al Khalifa label. Nothing worked out with the last one. Most likely, Jackson was so mentally and physically exhausted that he could not engage in creativity, even despite the support of a new friend. Their friendship culminated in a lawsuit for $7 million for Jackson's failure to fulfill his obligations. A year later, the singer left Bahrain. In 2006, Michael found himself on the verge of financial collapse. Jackson had a multi-million-dollar loan, which made him sell half of his stake in Sony ATV Music Publishing, a company that owned more than 5 million copyrights, including the songs of many world-class performers such as the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. The Neverland Mansion was also closed because a lot of money was spent on its maintenance. In 2006, Michael settled in the Grouse Lodge recording studio. It had rooms in which he could live. There, together with will.i.am and Rodney Jenkins, the singer began work on a new album. Despite his tarnished reputation, Jackson won the World Music Awards. He performed the song We Are the World at the ceremony. At that time, no one could have imagined that this performance would be the last. Michael continued work on the new album, and for the 25th anniversary of the Thriller album, he released 2 remixes of the songs The Girl Is Mine and Wanna Be Startin' Something. However, the singer had no money, and the bank's debt only grew. He still had to transfer ownership of Neverland. Thanks to this, Michael received $35 million. He even decided to sell his thousands of memorable things through an auction house, but later, he canceled the event. Unexpectedly for everyone, Michael announced his musical comeback and a new series of This Is It concerts. Initially, he was supposed to hold 10 performances in London at the O2 Arena. Thus, the musician wanted to once again show the world what he was capable of and then leave the stage. But the fans' love changed the plans. More than 1 million tickets were sold in just 2 hours, which is why it was decided to increase the number of concerts to 50. It was hard to believe that the exhausted and thin Michael could cope with such a crazy load. Because of a previous head burn and a severe back injury during one of the concerts in Germany, Jackson was tormented by terrible pain. He was addicted to strong painkillers and sleeping pills. It was said that he could take 30 to 40 pills in just one night. Despite this, Michael plunged into preparations for concerts and began rehearsing for several hours every day. People close to him noticed how it became more and more difficult for him with each appearance on the stage. At the same time, the singer remained a perfectionist, so he was improving every movement and every note in his performance. Because of stress, the performer developed paranoia. It seemed to Jackson that someone wanted to harm him, and he even wanted to perform in a bulletproof vest. It got to the point that the artist started talking to himself and constantly repeated the phrase, "Why can't I choose?" He locked himself in the bathroom, refusing to go to rehearsals, but was made to do so again and again. Only after a week's break, when Michael returned to rehearsals, his condition seemed better. Although he remained weak, it was impossible to look away from him on stage. It seemed as if everything was getting better. But no. Throughout the preparation of the series of concerts, Michael was under the supervision of the doctor, Conrad Murray. Murray gave Michael medication to help him sleep and relax. On the morning of June 25, 2009, when there were only 3 weeks left before the series of concerts, Conrad made concessions to the singer and added one of the strong drugs to his IV, to which Jackson was already addicted. The doctor stayed with Michael for a while and then left the room. And when he returned, the musician was no longer breathing. The singer was taken away by an ambulance, and after more than an hour, they tried to resuscitate him at the hospital, but it was in vain. At the age of 50, the King of Pop died of an overdose of painkillers.
Viewers, both the Los Angeles Times and CBS News are both now reporting that Michael Jackson has died.
The death of the pop king shook the world. People began searching for any information about the tragedy on the internet, causing Google, AOL Instant Messenger, Twitter, and Wikipedia to go down. MTV broadcasted only clips and programs with the participation of Michael Jackson, with breaks for breaking news and the reaction of world stars to the event. More than 1 million fans wanted to attend the farewell to the legend, among which 8,750 people were chosen and given 2 tickets each, and about 3 billion viewers followed the memorial ceremony from TV screens. They said goodbye to Michael Jackson on July 7th at the Staples Center before playing a private service in the family circle. Many world stars attended the event. Some of them gave speeches. In particular, during his monologue, Al Sharpton addressed Michael's children. "There wasn't nothing strange about your daddy. It was strange what your daddy had to deal with. He dealt with it anyway." It was the hardest thing for children to deal with the tragedy. During her speech, the 11-year-old daughter Paris cried bitterly. Michael Jackson was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale on September 3, 2009. But what were the real circumstances of the performer's death? Many people had this question, and it was primarily addressed to his doctor at the time. At the time of starting work with Michael Jackson, Conrad Murray was in great debt, so such a patient was very profitable for him. The doctor asked for a fee of $5 million. 3 months before the artist's death, Murray purchased more than 100 vials of propofol. This amount was extremely large for one person. The drug, in addition to its hypnotic effect, was also used as a means of maintaining anesthesia. Conrad administered it to Michael so that he could fall asleep, although over time he claimed that he changed the treatment because the singer became addicted to this substance. That fateful morning, he agreed to give Jackson a dose of the drug, although from the position of doctor-patient, he had to refuse the singer. This is not even FDA approved for insomnia. It is not a sleep aid. You look at what is this stuff. It's an anesthetic agent that is used to put somebody under, basically knock them unconscious. So in other words, it would be like using a hammer to kill an ant. Explained Vesna Maris, a former Los Angeles deputy district attorney. An investigation was conducted into Michael's death, which revealed many medical irregularities. In particular, Murray left the patient after administering the drug at 10:40 a.m., although he had to stay close and monitor his condition. According to the doctor, he went to the bathroom for just a few minutes and then found his patient unconscious, although the police recorded that 11 o'clock in the afternoon, he spoke on the phone for almost an hour. According to witnesses, he then tried to resuscitate Jackson and ordered his bodyguard to collect and hide all the vials of the drug. The 911 call wasn't made until 1:30 a.m. When the ambulance arrived, Murray did not tell the medics that he injected the singer with propofol and admitted it only 2 days later. Besides, Murray made several other gross violations. There was no necessary medical equipment to monitor Michael's condition during the administration of such powerful substances, and Murray did not keep medical records of what he administered to Jackson and his reactions to the drug. As a result, Conrad Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Nevertheless, the memory of Michael Jackson, as well as his work, continued to exist. In 2009, a documentary film, Michael Jackson's This Is It, was released about the preparation for a series of concerts that were never destined to take place. as well as a posthumous album of his hits with the same name as the film. We have already told you that during his lifetime, Michael invested in Sony ATV Music Publishing. Thanks to this, it was possible to close Jackson's multi-million loans and other debts. Michael continued his life not only in his songs. For example, the Ubisoft company developed the video game Michael Jackson: The Experience, in which you had to repeat the singer's legendary dances to his equally legendary tracks. His friend Mohammed Al-Fayed, who owned Fulham Football Club, commissioned a plaster and resin statue of Jackson to be placed outside Craven Cottage Stadium. However, this act was criticized because the singer had nothing to do with football. Cirque du Soleil presented 2 theatrical performances about the King of Pop. The first, Michael Jackson: The Immortal World Tour in 2011, and the second one, Michael Jackson 1, which was even more pompous in 2013. But there were also those who did not forget about Jackson's past scandals and decided to remember them even after the musician's death. In 2019, the documentary Leaving Neverland was released, in which 2 adult men, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, told how Michael molested them in childhood. Nevertheless, the release of the negative film only increased the sales of records and the singer's music in general. Michael's fans and family criticized the documentary, with some calling it distorted and biased. The Jacksons sued HBO for breaching an agreement not to publish any provocative material about the singer in exchange for video rights to his 2-hour concert, The Dangerous Tour. The Jackson family won the lawsuit and received $100 million in compensation. In 2024, the release of the film Michael, about the creative path of the King of Pop music, is planned. This once again shows what a huge contribution the artist has made to music culture. The secret of his success is in relentless work until his last breath. Despite his terrible physical and moral condition, he continued to do his life's work: music. His work is a masterpiece. His fate, unfortunately, was more tragic than happy. But the memory of Michael will live on for many more generations, and his songs are unlikely to ever lose their popularity. This is exactly how the love of fans of another legendary singer, whom we already mentioned today, Freddie Mercury, will not fade away. He left behind not only dozens of wonderful songs, but also many crazy stories, legends, and questions. Click on the video that appeared on your screen to learn more about the life and circumstances of the great singer's serious illness. And that's all for today. If you liked the journey through the pages of the pop legend's life, you can thank us with a like. It was Enco Stories. See you soon.